I mean, PlayStation becoming a supervillain, that wasn't quite on my 2026 bingo card. It seems like PlayStation has decided this is the year they're going to tick off every customer they have and force everyone into a dystopian tech bro hellscape. I couldn't believe that they, first of all, weren't going to give any refunds callously to all the people that they are leaving hanging on Studio Canal's library deletion from their platform. I think it's like at least 500 movies or something like that, and all these people who bought them digitally through the PlayStation dashboard, they're not going to get a refund for that because, these companies now are adamant that when you buy something, you don't own it. We're paying rent on everything, but they're not calling it rent. It would be one thing if they said, hey, this purchase is basically a monthly rental fee for this movie in perpetuity. But they didn't. And it's why I've never once used one of those digital Movies Anywhere codes that came with Blu-rays and some DVDs and now 4Ks. I've never bought into the whole digital library thing because hard drives fail, companies are bastards, things get pulled out, from under the consumer all the time. Things get changed without any warning. There are people who have identified that they bought a movie on, say, Prime, and they quietly changed the edit of the movie. And not even Amazon themselves. Sometimes it's the parent studio. I know that happened with Superman 2. I'm sure there's a number of other instances where that's happened, where they literally switch the movie out from under you at the same link. And people figure it out and they go, why is this movie suddenly 4 minutes shorter than when I bought it? All of this, when we're talking about PlayStation, saying we're going to delete these movies and we're not giving you refunds. And then on top of that, several days later, saying, oh, by the way, we're getting rid of all physical media for games by 2028 for PlayStation 6. Because they were already pushing the discless PlayStation 5s, which when Melinda was adamant she was going to get me a PlayStation 5 that I didn't ask for, she's always felt like if I can find a game or something to play, it would decompress my brain. I turn everything into work, so that really doesn't matter. But I was adamant. I said, well, look, if you're insistent on getting a PS5, I want one with the drive. And that's what I've had. And I buy my PlayStation 5 games. They're all physical. It's just the smarter way to be. Now, rightfully so, people have said, well, even if you have a physical disc, some of those games, like everything, made by EA and all those people, they now do the thing where the disc really doesn't have the game on it. The disc is just like an unlock code to download the game, which is shitty. That's objectively terrible. And so you learn if you're not worried about missing out on a video game, because a video game at the end of the day is not an accomplishment for a consumer. You learn who those companies are, which ones they are, and then you avoid purchasing from those companies. So when I bought Call of Duty Cold War, I realized I'd been rooked by the physical disc, and I said to myself, well, I don't need to play Call of Duty anymore. And I didn't miss it. I sleep well at night. I don't really worry about it. But I do know that there is the reality that just because you have a physical game completely on a physical disc, it doesn't mean that they can't use that now internet-connected console to render games inert. In other words, they can force updates on that console to make sure that whole lists of games never get played again, no matter how many times you attempt to insert that disc. And that is also objectively shitty. It is terrible that they have that power now. I never would have imagined, growing up in the era of cartridge-based console games, that would ever be a thing, because there was no internet back then to connect to it. They had to build the hardware better. They had to build the software better for the most part. We all had some experiences with dud games. There's no denying it. But by and large, the console you got was ready to go because it had been play tested enough before it had been brought to market, and every game worked with it. And you could play them in any console you could find, provided the console was in good repair. But now we're living in a different world, and that world is corporations don't want you to own anything. Now, I've been joshed and made fun of over the years, not just by people on the internet in the comments, but also by people that I knew at my jobs and everything else when they found out that I still collected discs for movies. They were telling me all the way back in 2012, 13, you got to get with the future, man. Like I got a server and I download all my stuff, and you know, I don't do Netflix's disc rent now. I do their digital streaming. And I told them at the time, I said, you do what you have to do, but don't pretend like this is the wave of the future. This is just because you prefer what you perceive as convenience. It's more convenient for you to not to have to take a disc out of a player and then walk the 3 steps and put it in the movie player or in the game console. That's what this comes down to. It is end game bread and circuses is what it is. But in adopting that wholesale as a society, we're telling these companies, take away our power of choice, take away the one fundamental benefit of commerce that we always had, regardless of what bad decisions companies made. There was always that tacit understanding that when I hand you my money, I get something for it in return. Even if that thing ends up being dissatisfying in some way, like say an LJN Nintendo game, it is still something that I can hold and go, I exchanged my money and received this. Whereas now people are exchanging their money for digital files that always live on those services. And they've been taken away constantly now. And these companies are getting more and more and more brazen, to the point that we've seen what PlayStation has decided to do this week or this past week or whatever it was. They really don't care that we know they're spitting on us now. Like now they're just like, they're basically saying, and what are you going to do about it? Whereas before there was a lot of discretion. They didn't want the consumer to know that that's what they were doing. So they tried to hide it better. But now they think they're like omniscient. And the funniest part is all of these companies have been, they're all tech companies, whether they're a gaming company or a data center AI company or a web browser or whatever. They've pushed and pushed and pushed society to, monthly subscriber fees for software rather than selling discs. That happened with Adobe back in the day. PC games disappeared from physical media very quickly because they were the first machines to really be hooked up to the internet 24/7. And it took consoles a little while longer to get to that point. And now consoles are starting to abandon physical media or trying. And we as the consumer, we're sitting here going, okay, well, if you take away what I'm exchanging my money for, and you're proving that you don't care if you ever delete it away from me, and you keep my money in perpetuity, whereas I will end up with nothing. All of these services, what they don't seem to want to realize, despite all the laws that they've tried to put into place and lobby for that make the internet necessary for banking and make a mobile device in your hand constantly necessary for all manner of things. All of these things are actually luxuries. Like they are things that society at large, if society decided writ large to abandon them, would force these companies into a negotiating position rather than the position of power that they're in now. Society determines what changes. And right now, society has been so asleep at the wheel for too long that these companies have falsely believed that they can take over and write the rules. Now, the pessimistic out there will say, well, they do write the rules, so nothing's ever going to change. It can look that way from where we're sitting right now. It can look really bad. Like it can look really bleak. But I really don't believe in the old adage of, well, there's no way to stop the flood because the rain has already started, so there's no point in laying down sandbags. There's always a time, and it's never too late to make a different choice. And if enough people make the right choice, then they will have the rug pulled out from under them, just like they've tried to pull the rug out from under us. I bring up 2018 again. I came out in 2018 and said, HasLab is a bad idea. Hasbro shouldn't be crowdfunding these toys. Don't do it. Don't give this dragon, don't feed the dragon. Don't give this dragon power. People at the time didn't like that answer. I told them at the time it was going to teach Hasbro as a company how to treat its customers. And that means Hasbro is going to learn that customers will absorb deeper price hikes and more of them. And that's exactly what Hasbro did. Because that's how corporations think. And right now, what corporations think are, what they think is, consumers care more about convenience than they do about their rights. They care more about ease of access to a thing in the short term than justice for their purchase in the long term. So you can catch them, you can blindside them in the future if you want to, and you already have their money. And it's the same thing I said about HasLab. You've handed over your money. So if that Sentinel shows up without knee joints, and it did, or that transformer from the HasLab starts to crumble apart, and it did, well, at that point, you're kind of out of luck because you already handed over your money. Now they can do whatever they want. The Ferengi said, once you have their money, you never give it back. And if I'm going to hand over my money to something, like especially a corporation, I by and large, want something to show for it. I don't care. I want something to show for it. And I don't mean a slip of paper with a code on it. I mean the exact commodity that I'm buying. And in this case, with the internet companies and PlayStation especially, see, PlayStation and this situation could be the bulwark where consumers draw the line. Because PlayStation and Sony's PlayStation gaming division, they are a luxury item. Like, yeah, right now it's probably going to be tough to unstitch and untangle the other tech companies like Apple and Google from the fabric of our society. It's going to take longer. But you drop that first domino, and it starts to get easier to see the path to dropping the other dominoes and making these companies remember that they should be beholden to the consumer, not the other way around. Right now, these companies are run by these weird, like, neurodivergent assholes that think they're all gods. And they think that their vision of the future is the only future worth pursuing. It's not the only version of the future. It's the one that they are funding right now, and they have the majority of the money. So right now they have the power. But do you know how easy it would be, especially with PlayStation, to take all that money away from them? It would be very simple if society wasn't addicted to its convenience of not having to put a disc in a drive. And at this point, given how people feel about this, because this is what's so frustrating. There are so many people I know who are just as frustrated as people like me about what's happened with PlayStation and the message that it sends. But a lot of those people will still, for some reason, begrudgingly suck it up and just keep giving Sony money, like for PlayStation stuff. If with the news that the PlayStation 6 is going to be over $1,000 with no disc drive, and Sony is pissing on all of its customers 2 years ahead of it, what a wake-up call it would be for nobody to show up on release day and try and pick up a PlayStation 6. What a wake-up call it would be if this month Sony's, online sales plummet to near zero. I don't have a lot of faith that that's going to happen because consumers, while they're angry, they're still oddly too comfortable. I'm not comfortable with what's happened at all. I'm not comfortable with it at all. I already told myself, I don't buy into AI. I don't watch AI videos. I avoid all that stuff because of what these companies are doing. The companies have decided they can push society around for the lofty, misguided visions of a select few people. But those people's dreams of a future are not actually a viable future for the majority of people on this planet, and they know that. And right now, all these other companies are glomming onto that because they're tech companies as well, so they can all take advantage of this because data centers are growing faster than we can grow our food. And with the amount of water and everything they're going to take, we're not going to be able to grow food or even survive much longer. It's going to become like an absolute Matrix-like hellscape. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually we find out that the reason that they're pushing the whole, birth rate, movement is because they want us to be in those pods like human batteries, because they're not really providing us jobs. They're taking away the jobs. So why is there a birth rate crisis if there are no jobs for people to do? Oh, right. It's because they want to use us as fuel. It's the old historical cycle. The majority has to decide if they want to eat the elites before the elites eat us. Because the elites are always getting to the point. Throughout history, the elites get to the point where they say, we are just fodder. We are just food. Eat them. Grind them up. Because you get to a certain point in your industry or in your rank or whatever it is, and your thinking changes. The wiring in your brain changes. This has been scientifically proven. And you start to see yourself as above everything else. And then you have to get taught a really hard lesson. And usually it involves a blade dropping from a rope. And you're at the bottom of it. In this case, though, with PlayStation, they are not an essential service. They do not provide food or shelter. They don't provide, water. They don't, nothing. We as a society could send all the tech companies a very tough lesson with PlayStation. We could say, oh yeah, watch this. We're already as a society globally mad about the AI data centers. We're mad about the misinformation. We're mad about all that stuff, rightfully so. Too many people have bought into the whole chat GPT and AI video crap. Too many people have just bought into it. And it's going to come back and bite all of us collectively in the ass because of the decisions of a lot of people who just want they want the illusion of convenience. And that's how we've gotten to the same place with PlayStation. Too many people wanted the illusion of convenience when really the disc itself is actually more convenient for you as a consumer because you're getting something for your money and you're not allowing that choice to be taken away willfully by the company. The companies want you to acquiesce all of your rights. They want that IV into your bank account every month. It was several years ago that I stopped subscribing to PlayStation Plus. I wasn't using it. And I was using physical discs. I didn't really need it. And I don't even remember why we got it at the time. It was, I guess, when we got the system or whatever. I haven't missed it. Most of the gaming that I do now, which is rare, is on Steam. Now, I know you'll say, well, Steam is also diskless. You're also just buying off of a dashboard. That's true. And that is a problem. But there are multiple services like Steam, GOG, and a number of others. GOG, I know, allows you to download and keep all the executable files. So in theory, you can operate those games. When I say in theory, you can operate those games on your computer without the GOG dashboard. But in theory, even if GOG disappeared one day, you would still have all those executable files, the game files that you bought. Steam, it's a little weirder than that. There's a little bit of monopoly going on there. But with Steam, I freely admit that I wait for sale days, and I really end up buying like kind of retro games and stuff. And I know everybody's tastes are different, but I'm not downloading like the latest $80 game digitally. I'm not doing it. The latest one that I had considered several months ago purchasing at a full price that was a sort of mainline game would have been the upcoming Tomb Raider game. But then I found out that they employed AI to make that game, which a company that big has no excuse to do that. So I'm not going to be pre-ordering that game, and I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. As big a Tomb Raider fan as I am, I don't need to play the original game for the fourth time, meaning in a fourth iteration. You're never going to top the original version anyway, so why are we still doing this exercise? But if we could, as a society, get to a point where we can all collectively walk away from Sony's PlayStation brand to send a message.
I might even be able to crash the whole damn system.
As the Joker said in Dark Knight, it's not about the money, it's about sending a message. That would probably be the wake-up call that the industry needed, and it would probably be better for all of us collectively too. As a Gen Xer, I remember a life before in-home gaming, and I certainly remember a life before the internet. Video games and the sedentary nature of becoming a video gamer have not done society a lot of favors. Maybe in some poetic way, I'd love to think that this is the straw that finally breaks the back of societal, gaming obsession, video games, and we all move forward as a society into a post-video game recreational landscape somewhere. That would be nice. But at its most basic level, my point about me buying retro games on discount on Steam is that I consciously don't invest a lot of money in Steam. I have a library that's been built up over several years, yes, but I consciously don't pay a lot of money for a game on Steam, and that's programming on my part because of where I come from generationally. I don't like spending a lot for something that just gets downloaded. I have to do it to make these videos because I have the Adobe suite. I'm even considering dropping that just because Adobe keeps raising their prices for no reason whatsoever. But I am considering, making further shifts. But I can tell you this: it was an instant decision in the wake of the news this week. It was an instant decision. Yeah, I'm not going to buy any more PlayStation stuff. None. And I like Sony electronic products. I have a Sony Bravia television. I have Sony. I have two Sony multi-region Blu-ray players. Those things are items that would send a signal in the opposite direction. But Sony's been learning the wrong lessons for years now. Sony decided it wasn't even going to produce TVs anymore, and they had some of the best TVs on the market. They ended the Bravia line and handed over that branding to like a third party. Kind of like Hasbro handing over Mask to a third party toy company. Like it was crazy. It was like, what are you doing? Physical media, physical movies, sure, they're probably going to become like the laser discs of our time within the next 5 years. They will be for movie enthusiasts alone. But I know this much. Movie enthusiasts who collect their media, they're not going to let this die. No matter what the studios do, they will not let it die. And, guys who are gamers, people who are gamers, them. They will hack their way and mod their way and rip their way through these discs, programs, downloads, and everything to find a way around this. Sony and the decisions they're making, if they claim they want to have more control and they claim they're trying to fight piracy and all these kind of things, they are taking the exact wrong path. For movies, sure, there's people that digitally, torrent movies and stuff like that. But movie, cinephiles, they want the collection. They want their collection. They want their library, of which I'm no different. And there will always be companies. I'm confident there will always be a company out there, as long as sort of like boutique Blu-ray makers who are licensing catalog titles from the studios to make limited runs of discs. Because as long as they're out there, just like with La La Land Records and Entrada for movie soundtracks on CD, as long as they're out there, there will be a company out there that will make the disc players. Even when Sony and Samsung and LG and all of them decide we're not doing this anymore, there will be a company that will come in and say, well, we will still provide players. So I'm sticking with discs, and I know how to keep them, in the proper conditions, and I know how to handle them and all that stuff. I've always been very careful with the things I invest in. I've never seen them as disposable. That includes my PlayStation 4 and 5 game collection. It includes my old Nintendo games. PlayStation is making a really bad move. And the only way that it's going to actually work out for them, regardless of the ignored backlash, because they are actively ignoring the backlash right now, the only way this is going to work out for them is if there's no rebellion. They really think right now that people need their products that badly. They think that people need their games that badly. They think they are too big to fail. They think that there's no rebellious spirit left in their consumers. And it's an insult to those consumers that they think that. They see us as wallets and nothing more. And it's not to say that a company has to have a chummy relationship with us. They are out to get our money. But they should have to work for it. They should have to try. And they have hit hubris. They have hit, maximum hubris. This is the maximum hubris moment for PlayStation. And with the number of people right now that I've seen in the news cycles, all the news stories of people canceling their PlayStation Plus accounts and everything like that, I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged at the possibility that PlayStation will reap what they've sown, and they will regret this. The previous CEO of PlayStation America has come out and said, this is a really bad move. I don't know why they're doing this. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible to see how even people who were closely associated with this company are looking at the current leadership and going, this is not smart. But again, it's only going to work if people do nothing. If everybody does nothing, or enough people just kind of roll over and get complacent about it and give corporate capitalism yet another victory with next to no effort. They let us tread on us just one more time, then they'll win. It doesn't sound like they're winning at the moment, but there's this period of corporate arrogance where they think they're ready for the backlash they're going to get. They arrogantly say, we can weather it. It's not a big deal. But then what happens? They turn around and realize the backlash is a lot broader and deeper than they anticipated if the consumer en masse has enough dignity and sense of self-worth. If you're not a drone, if you've not become a vacuous consumerist drone, and there are enough people who have maintained their sense of dignity, then PlayStation is going to regret this. And hopefully it won't be the only tech company that regrets this. Hopefully this will be a win for the consumer, and it will galvanize consumers with these other companies in the very near future. The way I look at it, you've got the guys that restored the original Star Wars when George Lucas said, you're never going to get it again. And he meant it. But it didn't matter, because the people who were cinephiles, the people that believed in physical media, the people that believed in having a choice and weren't just going to roll over for whatever Lucas threw at us and then Disney threw at us on Disney Plus, which, by the way, I've never had a Disney Plus account. That's a choice that I've made. We have the original 77 Star Wars, and we've had it long before Disney finally cried uncle and acquiesced and said they're going to bring it out next year. We have it. You can't stop what they call piracy by continuing to take away more and more of our choices as consumers. You will only fuel that movement. For better or worse, you will fuel that movement. It's the whole thing of, why are you as a company claiming that we're stealing from you if it's something you're not even willing to provide that we say we want to buy? But with Sony and the PlayStation thing, so far the outrage is encouraging. Will it last? I don't know. But I know this: PlayStation has made a very arrogant play. And they will absorb damage from this decision. It might not be the damage that sends the message that needs to be sent in full, but it is a foolish move, and it will incur damage on PlayStation's portfolio. And I'm not going to lose any sleep at night over that.
And you're selling something that you know has no value.
We are selling to willing buyers.
You will never sell anything to any of those people ever again.
I understand.
Do you? If you do this, you will kill the market for years. It's over.